Welcome to Reality Bytes Radio on what date is it? The 30th of June, 2014, 8 p.m. in the UK, 3 p.m. Eastern Time in the US. We've got Dave Eden of I was going to say Community Press Group, but we'll hear from Dave as to why that's not the case anymore, because we're moving to a new platform which includes, obviously, Awake TV, called Live Pulse News. You there, Dave?
I am indeed.
So, Dave, we've gone over this over the past week or 2 weeks. Do you want to, well, we did put an article on the website talking about the future of the Community Press Group and mentioning that we were going to change the focus more towards a media, television, radio, news gathering outfit rather than the kind of community journalism side of things because, well, quite frankly, it's not working. People have fully good ideas and they come along to see what you're about and they're all enthusiastic and then they go home again and just sit down in front of the TV again or something and do nothing. But the whole point of the Community Press Group was to try and get people off the sofa and get involved. But I think we've only got about 5 people at most who've actually done anything. So it's not worked at all. And there'll be some people out there who will say, well, you should just persevere with it. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but it costs a lot of money to run around the country meeting people. And if they're not prepared to put themselves out a little bit, then, sitting in front of a computer writing an article once a month, then it isn't worth it, is it, Dave? Dave? No, we've lost Dave, have we? I think we've lost Dave. No, I think we've got Dave back. Have we?
Yeah, unfortunately, Neil, I have no idea what's going on here.
Oh, well, let's get on with it, and if you get cut off, then you get cut off. But did you hear what I said about the change of focus and stuff?
I did, yeah. Well, I heard most of it.
Okay, well, I mean, we're live on here now, so you just take it away from there, really. And I was mentioning that, so many people have come forward to say, yeah, we're going to do something. We'll write articles. We'll do this. We'll gather news, and virtually nobody has done anything. So that's the primary reason why we're changing focus. But there are other reasons which I don't know if you want to go into. But if you want to take it away, I'll leave it in your capable hands.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there, Neil's quite right. In terms of about 300 circa. People that came along to train, the 2-day training days, which were, expensive. I think the thing is, he's not really critical. I think people have a very, very genuine desire to want to get involved and to participate and to contribute. But on top of that, people have got lives to live. They've got families and children and elderly parents, so on and so forth, and jobs to maintain. And I think it's something that both you and I know. It takes a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of dedication. I'm in the lucky position that I'm retired and I receive a very good pension, so I have that amount of time to do it. And so I don't think it's always as easy as we think it's going to be. And some people do struggle when it comes to putting that sort of pen to paper and writing an article. Maybe that's a symptom of the comprehensive education that our younger people have got now. Maybe they need a comprehensive education to make up for their comprehensive education. So I think there's a number of factors, and certainly there was some cost factors. Each and every training session we ran, we were several £100 down. And frankly, no excuses, it didn't work. And there are a number of reasons and variables why it didn't work. So it is time certainly to change focus and concentrate on a core team of people that can contribute on a frequent basis. But that doesn't mean to say that the ethos of the Community Press Group, editorial policies and things, they all move with us to Live Pulse News, and certainly anyone from citizen journalists, if they want to submit work, then we will publish it. What's really happened is that we've stopped the expenditure and the time that it's taken to conduct the training courses, supply materials, so on and so forth. But we will certainly honour anybody that wants to write an article. The editorial policy will be the same so long as it's not in any way libellous and or seeks to marginalise any individual or individual community. then we will publish.
Yeah, and if there's anybody listening now who wants to write a story, feel free. Whatever the subject is, as Dave said, it's not, as long as it's not libelous, defamatory, or whatever along those lines. But so where does that take us, Dave? We've kind of decided that we've got to knock that on the head, kind of thing, as a concept, because it didn't work. We're not getting enough feedback from it. People aren't taking the bull by the horns, as it were, and doing stuff. So where are we going from here?
Well, obviously with the launch of the new platform, Live Pulse News, along the way, to get into that platform, we've been lucky enough, if we want to call it lucky enough. Unfortunately, I lost my mother to ovarian cancer, and as a result, received some inheritance, which I've been able to use and to put into Live Pulse News Community Press Group, or whatever we want to call it, and buy the equipment that we need. There's been a lot of investment in professional equipment. We have 3 European broadcast standard cameras, professional microphones, mixing desks, studio lighting, you name it, we've got it. We are now fully equipped to make a documentary production and programming right up to national broadcast standards, and in fact beyond. We can actually make some of the equipment we have is capable of recording up to feature film standards. So it's a case of utilising the equipment that we have now and make sure that it's not sitting around idle, and if that we're not using it, then somebody else is using it. And it's sort of just, that little security blanket that we've got now is been able to push forward. I'm going to make no secret about it. Live Pulse News is a limited company. And it's a limited company for, in my mind, all the right reasons. Some people might say, well, why does it have to be a limited company? Well, it has to be a limited company because limited companies afford a certain level of protection. And of course, we have the necessary libel insurances and public liability insurances and so on and so forth. But at least with a limited company, if it ever is attacked in any way, then neither myself or anyone else connected with it is going to be personally liable for anything. And to me, that makes sound business sense. It is, a level of business or sophistication that we should do. We shouldn't ever try to hide the fact. And so that's what we'll do. And we will, to a level, we will commercialise it, because you have to commercialise. You have to look at ways of monetising. In the last month, our rent this month was like £1,500. Our internet bill's £360. Well, if we want to be able to get these services out there, then they have to be paid for. Donations are not something that come in. People don't have the available funds to donate. So we have to look for an element of commercialisation. So there will be documentary making, and initially that will be on a pay-per-view basis. Very small amounts of people will need to pay, but that will at least cover the cost of producing those documentaries and being able to get the right people to produce those documentaries, bringing in sort of people on a subcontract basis, people that are professionals, people that know the industry, have worked in the industry, that can actually create polished, professional productions. You still there, Neil?
What's it doing? You there?
Yeah, I can hear you, Neil.
It's this. It's Windows 8, I'm afraid. I'll struggle with it, but I'll get there. It should be pointed out that anybody else who wants to make a documentary, it doesn't have to be in this genre, if you like. But anybody who wants to come up and do a broadcast from the studio, they're more than welcome to go up for a nominal fee to cover the cost of the studio, the lights, all that stuff. And we'll quite happily accommodate them. They could be making, they could be making a little program on, cooking, anything, doesn't matter. But that facility is there, and as you say, the stuff's got to be used, the equipment's got to be used. It's sitting there doing nothing sometimes. And I suppose that brings us on to the Awake TV News. That was the first pilot of that on Saturday. And I was in discussions with Steve today for a slot whereby we can start doing a weekly programme for a couple of hours a week. And that really is going to be the focus in the short term and long term, of course. along with hopefully getting out and about in the streets and getting some good live footage of ordinary people, politicians, whatever, and putting it out there either as a live broadcast or as a pre-recorded kind of program as such.
Yeah, I very much agree with you on that. I mean, let's face it, people like visual. I mean, obviously radio is very, very popular, but people do like to be able to look at images. They do like to be able to look at programming. And I think the marriage from awake radio and awake radio TV is something that is worth developing. I think that one of the very, very important factors is about that. I mean, obviously we have the studios here, we have the facilities here, but we've also got the facility to take calls from anywhere in the world. And of course we can then actually integrate them into the programming. And for me, one of the important things about this is that it's, the hub, for want of a better word, is based in the UK, is that certainly that we're getting the monthly three-hour program out there. We'll start with then obviously a couple of weeks' time we'll have a 1 hour scheduled program going out a week, and then we would like to increase that. But for me, I think it's very important that we have got participation from everybody, and that everybody's got the same chance. And and I want to see people from America, from Australia, from the European countries. I think we had was it Ole that we had on this week? In fact, his English is actually better than a lot of people that live here.
Well, it's better than mine.
Yes, well, certainly. I mean, I'm not actually quite certain you speak English, but then we're not going to that. But that's and I think that is the sort of thing that we need. And hopefully, if we can do that, then somebody might say, well, okay, then we can do awake TV, US and Australia and so on and so forth, and we can combine our efforts. And it's getting that broad spectrum of guests. I certainly don't think that we should. I mean, we need to focus on what's going on in the UK. We need to focus what's going on in Europe, but I think we need to see what's going on everywhere else in the world, because we're all at different stages of what's happening. It seems to there's different methodologies employed across the globe, and I think it's very important that by making it a global community, we can see and learn what may be coming to us, and vice versa. And so I really do see that as a very strong developing opportunity. Getting back to what we were saying earlier on briefly, you and I and members of the team here, we've joined the National Union of Journalists and become recognised bona fide journalists in the eyes of the law and the eyes of the authority. And I think some people might say, well, why have you done that? Be a bit critical of that. And we're alternative. What I would say on that is we're not necessarily alternative, we are independent. And there is a slight difference there, because our editorial policy is such that we will print anything, we will give anybody a platform to talk about what their beliefs are. Whether we necessarily concur or not is irrelevant. We just want to show people the respect for their opinions, and that their opinions and their viewpoints are as important as everybody else's, and everyone's got an equal opportunity. But NUJ membership, it's a leveller in the sense that it allows us access to certain places. As you know, we've gained access to Downing Street, we're down on the Green at Parliament, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, and it's something that I learned from my term in the police service, is that sometimes to compete with a man, you have to be the man. Doesn't mean to say that you have to change your social attitudes or your moral standpoint, but in order to gain the same advantages that they've got, you've got to be part of the club. And so long as you do your journalism is professional, then there should be no issues.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And as you say, you only get access to certain places with the proper accreditation. And if we want to get into press conferences and big public meetings, then that's what you have to do, and that's the only place you're going to get to ask the questions, is in these public meetings and press conferences. The fact is that all of the mainstream journalists really do have access to these places, but they don't ask the questions. That's the difference. And we're not going to stand in line and wait to be put our name on a list to be nominated to ask a question. We'll just go in there and ask the question. That's the whole point of getting access, isn't it?
Well, I believe so. I don't think there's any point in standing on the periphery, full of sort of moral high ground and indignation, when somebody else has got access to the people that you need to get access to. I mean, we go back to Parliament. Look how close we were. Look how many people we managed to speak to that had we been on the periphery, had we been outside the barriers, we wouldn't have got a chance to approach. And you've got to use the tools. If people say about law, I get this a lot being an ex-police officer, it's their laws. Well, they're not their laws, they're our laws. And our laws, all we need to do is to know how to use our laws against what is wrong. And that's really that it should be a course of conduct in everything that we do. And same with the fact that we're a national union of journalists members. Then why shouldn't we be? You and I, we're professional full-time journalists. That's are the people that we're working with, and we should use that tool. Likewise, I mean, we've heard a lot this week about ATVOD, which is the television on demand, and the censorship, or well, I believe it's been described as censorship of the UK column, and they're going to censor. This is the beginning of the censorship of the internet, so on and so forth, and an awful lot of hype about it. Now, I've listened to what Mike and Brian have said about it, and as you know, I've got a lot of respect for both Mike and Brian. However, again, we have this presents an opportunity. And we either look at something and we say, okay, well, this is, oh my goodness, this is leading to censorship. This is going to, stop us reporting on the internet, so on and so forth. And we refuse to cooperate and effectively, basically, censor ourselves, take ourselves off the air. Well, one of the issues is about that. I mean, if you look at it and you look at the criteria of it, what constitutes a broadcaster. And, I looked at the Community Press Group. I've certainly looked at what we're going to do as part of Lifebox Television. There are 5 points, and I mean, if we I've got time, and I'll go through them.
Yep, sure, Kyle.
I mean, well, so point A, so, is the service an on-demand program service? Well, let's have a look at that. Is the principal purpose is the provision of a TV-like program? Okay, there's some argument about what is and what isn't a TV-like program. So fundamentally, that's broken down to, is it a program whose form and content are comparable to the form and content of programs normally including television program services? So, is it about religion, politics, current affairs? Is it got adult content, so on and so forth? Well, I would say that yes. Certainly, Lifebox News and Community Press Group, yes, we fit into that category. Now, is it a VOD service? Is it a view-on-demand service? Does the service enable users to select individual programs from amongst the programs included in the service? Well, again, I would say that it does. We made the Sonia Poulton shows. We made a total of 4 shows before we had a little bit of a hiatus. But of course, somebody looking at that's going to say, well, I've got a choice of 4 shows here. It's a series of shows. I can have a look at it. So within their definition, does that comply? Yes, it does. Is there editorial responsibility? And that the programs comprising the service are under a person's editorial responsibility? Well, yes, they do, because we have that editorial responsibility. You have it, or I have it, or we jointly have it. Is it made available to the public? Yes, we make it available to the public. And number 5, is a person, or are we, under the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom for the purposes of the directive? Well, yes, we are. Very, very simple directives. I fully understand that these really need exploring a lot more. I think there's issues with the people that are supposedly independent, that are representatives of that VOD, so on and so forth. But, the core principle of it, the skeleton of it, do we qualify as a video on-demand service? Yes, we do. So I think here we have 2 choices. We can say, look, we're not going to argue with you. We're going to censor ourselves. We're going to take ourselves off the air. We're going to remove all our content. Screw you. We're not going to do it. And then we're going to make a big scene about how we've been censored and so on and so forth, and this is censorship of the internet. However, my opinion on this is, well, let's try it. Let's go for it. You know, the license, you know, believe it or not, the license is £91 a year. That's all it costs. So let's pay our £91. Let's put all our content out there. Let's get other people coming to us, people that want to make programming. Yeah, come to us, come and make your programs. We will take editorial responsibility for that, and we will broadcast your program. We can live stream it, and then we can put it on the YouTube channel. We can put it on our own players, so on and so forth, and we will make that available as a VOD service. Now, at the point that there is direct intervention, and they say, no, you can't put that on there because of, and they start to censor the material. At that point, I think we can say, yes, they're censoring the internet. They're censoring this material that we're putting out there because they don't like the content of it. Then we've got an argument. However, if we pay our £91 and we can put anything out there and they don't censor it, I mean, obviously, you know, there has to be guidelines. You can't put hardcore porn out there. You can't put things out there that are going to be dangerous to society and or you know, going to affect children. And when I say dangerous to society, I mean, you know, we can't start promoting terrorism and things of that nature. However, news coverage, albeit alternative or independent news coverage, which is critical of the establishment, we'll see what happens. Because I think it's a little bit too early in the game saying, well, we're not going to apply for licensing, we're not going to capitulate, we're not going to do this, we're going to take all our material down, and we're not having anything to do with it because you're censoring the internet. Well, I don't actually think at this stage that there's any evidence of that yet. There may well be in a few months, but somebody's got to say, okay, we're prepared to be the guinea pigs, we will do it, we will put it out there, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what gets censored and what doesn't get censored. And I strongly suspect that nothing will.
Yeah, well, if they start censoring content, then that's got to apply right across the board. So you would expect the BBC, ITV, Sky all to be pulled aside and said, you can't put that out, you can't put that out. I mean, all we're doing is putting out a different opinion. It's not like, I mean, and that's the job of the media. They're supposed to look at things, analyse them, and put out their own view of it. It depends which channel you're watching. They all put a different spin on everything, albeit towards the one agenda, I'm sure. But they still all put their own spin on it, whether it's from a Labour perspective or Conservative or Lib Dem perspective in terms of the Guardian or the Green agenda or whatever. But they all put their own spin on everything. And so we are perfectly entitled to put our view on any story that we choose. And if they come to censor us, then you start shouting censorship, and it's prejudice, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I don't really think that you can start shouting censorship when you have censored yourself, or you have removed content, or you've elected to do that without there being any, you know, absolute directive that you must do it and an explanation why you must do it. And I think that's why, you know, somebody has to say, okay, we will do this, we will make the application, we will get the licensing, we will put the programming out there, and let's see to what degree we're censored. And if we are censored, then yeah, we shout long and hard. But if we're not, maybe this isn't the problem that we think it is initially. And, you know, fundamentally, and, you know, I'm sort of sorry to say this, and some people might say it's a little bit defeatist, but I think you know the analogy that I use quite often during the training days about the buttons being on their side. If they're going to do this, they're going to do it anyway. It's a catch-22 situation. If they're going to start censoring it, they will censor it. They do have the buttons. They can switch things on and off, and they will do it. I don't think it's going to come to that. I certainly don't think that's going to come to that in the near future. But I think it would be very remiss not to try it, not to put our feet in the water and say, okay, here goes. This is the content, guys. Let's see what you're going to do with that. And our content, let's face it, you know, our editorial policies, we don't libel anybody. There's no defamation. We don't seek to marginalise anybody. hopefully we tell the truth about things, or as near to the truth as we can get to them, if anyone does know the truth. And we'll see. And I mean, you know, as we both know, sometimes that's very ugly, and it's not what the establishment want to hear. But hey ho, let's see what they do with it.
Yeah, well, and it should be pointed out as well that this does not apply to live broadcasting either. It only applies to video on demand. So there's nothing stopping anybody from broadcasting a daily program or a weekly program.
No, not at all.
Live.
I mean, it certainly doesn't actually. It doesn't actually give any sort of contextual sort of values to what compromises studio and what doesn't compromise a studio. You know, what is television like and is not what is not television like. I mean, fundamentally, I think the basics are that, you know, if you are going to present a show and it's of a specific genre, you know, if it's current affairs, then that's what it is. It doesn't really matter whether you present that from a studio, whether you present it from your bedroom, whether you present it from a park bench. You know, if it's something that follows a particular format, that is, you know, like the Sonny Bolton shows, it's serialised, then, you know, it can qualify as being a view-on-demand service. I think the implications are very widespread. I mean, you know, I think quite rightfully the UK column and other people have pointed out, Ian Crane's pointing some stuff out today, you know, where does this end? You know, are we going to start, you know, people doing YouTube videos in their bedroom, so on and so forth? Are they a VOD service? And of course, you know, I mean, the parameters, the definitions of it, the way that it's been written are quite unclear. They're quite sketchy. And I do think there are a lot of issues with it. I really do think there are a lot of issues with it, and certainly with the people that are the so-called supposedly independents that are responsible for the administration of this. And, you know, I'm not for 1 minute sort of saying, yeah, I fully condone this, I think it's wonderful, because I don't, and not in any way, shape or form. But I do think for the sake of £91 and to obtain the licence, I think it has to be done. And I think that is the only way that without deliberately sort of taking ourselves off the air and censoring ourselves, because I mean, what would you do if we don't do it? We censor ourselves. We've done the job for them already. So let's, you know, why do that? Let's just do it and see what happens. You still there, Neil?
Just struggling with Windows 8 again. Anyway, we're here. Yeah, I mean, the futility, if you like, of censoring ourselves, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot, really. We've got to use the system that's there in the same way that we use the money that's there. We have no choice in the matter, unfortunately. And as is the case with AtVod, we really have no choice other than to censor ourselves and, as I say, shoot ourselves in the foot, because the only way we're going to get the word out is through, as you said, the audio-visual side of things. And if we don't do it, then how is anybody else going to get on board? The only way we can stop censorship is if more people know about it.
Well, precisely, and I mean, and that's what we're going to do. And you know, I think really that the platform, especially with the Wait TV, because it's international, and of course these restrictions or the AtVod regulations aren't going to apply there. It'd be interesting to see, you know, when we publish something that has, you know, sort of actually been made in the US or Australia or wherever, and somebody else has editorial rights, so to speak, of that, and then we publish that on our site. It'd be interesting to see how, you know, what the determination is about that. Because are we assumed to have editorial rights because we've published it? Or, as members of AtVod, can we publish other people's work under our licence when we don't have specific editorial rights over it? I think there's so many questions to be asked. There's so many areas that you know, we're going to have to beta test, and we'll see. But if we walk away from it, we're never going to know. So let's take the challenge head on. Let's take it to him that way, and we'll see what happens. And if there's any criticism comes, we'll take it.
Yeah, I think the way to go is to go down that road and wait for the challenge to come from them, and then, you know, fight it. And I mean, even if it means going to court on it, somebody's going to have to do that eventually.
Yeah, I agree.
to stop the censorship. So, and you can't do that if you're already out the game.
No.
So,
I mean, what we need to do is say, here we are. Here is an empirically and definitively provable case of direct censorship. And I mean, you know, if anyone out there wants to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that, you know, obviously the UK column, they're very high profile. You know, they're probably quite right in the fact that they've been targeted as the sort of, you know, UK's most high profile or alternative media outlet. But by electing not to say, okay, we'll register, we'll pay the £91 or whatever it is, it's about £130 the most you'll pay, and we won't remove our videos and we'll continue to do what we're doing. It would have been interesting to see what would happen, but, you know, effectively, for their reasons, and, you know, I'm sure they've got very, very good reasons to do so. You know, my opinion is that potentially that they've chosen to censor themselves. And we'll see, you know, we'll see what happens with that, because ATVOL have obviously been very, very quiet on the matter. But certainly there's nothing there. We can't say, well, actually, here is some definitive proof of censorship, because very well the ATVOL, you know, argument will be, we haven't censored anything. UK column were asked. They, you know, they could have paid the £91. They could have participated in the scheme, and we wouldn't have censored any of their, you know, they wouldn't have had to remove it, and we wouldn't have censored their content. Well, of course, we'd only have their word for that, because we don't know that would be true either. And so, you know, somebody has to say, okay, well, we're going to do it. We're going to put ourselves out there. We're going to publish what we publish, and we'll see. And only time will tell, Neil. And, you know, whether it's going to be a month, 2 months, 6 months, we'll see what happens.
Well, I think it's certainly going to go down that road eventually, but we have to be, you know, we can't be censored if we're not putting anything out there. So,
no, well, you can't win it if you're not in it, basically.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on from that, and let's discuss the first documentary that's going to be coming out, and that's going to be out sometime in August with a certain Mr. Ike.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, we say let's discuss it. August. Well, it's going to be late summer. Now, I think have you got the press release there, Neil? There is a press release on this. I don't know whether you've got it in front of you or not. I think Neil's struggling there with Windows 8 again. I mean, it's one of the unfortunate things that happen when you're born in 1876.
No, what it is
Neil, you there?
Yeah, I am here. I'm just getting the press release up on the iPad as we speak. See, I can do high tech sometimes in a low tech manner. Okay, do you want to read this out?
Yeah, I mean, go through the press release. I think that would be easier, and then I'll give a very brief synopsis of what's what. Right.
I'll read the first few paragraphs, and then you can step in. Okay. When journalist and broadcaster Sonia Poulton walked out of the People's Voice in January 2014, she promised to put the record straight, offer an open and transparent explanation for her decision, and demand the same from Mr. Ike and his business associates. Of course, the easy option would have been to capitalise on the situation and offer some sort of immediate and sensational exposure of Mr. Ike and Co. But such impetuous actions could not have been productive. She would have been caught in the crossfire of allegations, counter-allegations and disinformation, ultimately resulting in vital evidence evaporating behind a frenzied media smokescreen as the Ike faithful and those emotionally committed to his ethos rallied to his defence. Time, of course, is a great leveller, and now 6 months later, even the faithful are starting to question the wisdom and truthfulness of their Messiah. So that's the first little bit, Dave, and there are good reasons in that short little paragraph why we can't say too much, because we have had to sign confidentiality notices, but say what you can on that, and then we'll move on to the next bit.
Yeah, we have had to sign non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements, quite rightfully so. Sonny's a very good and very professional journalist who certainly knows the importance of proper research and protecting that research. In terms of the involvement from this side, as we discussed earlier on, we do have all the equipment, we do have all the facilities and capabilities to produce good quality documentaries right up to national broadcast standard and above if deemed necessary. And so from that point of view, we've been engaged as a production company. We supply the equipment and the various people, and oh yeah, I've got a grand title of executive producer, which basically means I carry things around and pay for stuff. It is very difficult because of the confidentiality ties that we have there in terms of, I mean that it's a legality, it's been done legally as the contracts. But the press release really says it all, doesn't it? Now I've been, without being able to say too much, I've been privy to a lot of the information. I've seen a lot of the documentary evidence. I've been privy to the. I think in the release it does make reference to the fact that there are certain people and fair weather friends and other people that want to distance themselves from the basically catastrophic nature or failures of the people's voice, or certainly some people's opinions that it has been such. And I don't think it's any secret that there are certain amount of unease about potential alleged wrongdoings therein, especially in and around sourcing and disposal of public funds and so on and so forth. I've looked at all the material, and I've looked at it from the point of view as an executive producer. I've also looked at it from the point of view as a very, very experienced police officer, somebody who's used to investigating things to a high standard, and I'm certainly very happy that anything that Sonia Poulton is going to present is going to be robustly evidenced. And I think even now a few of the Ike faithful are beginning to think, well, hang on a minute, things aren't right here. Certain promises made haven't been met. There are certain things that, certain questions that are unanswered questions. I know that Mr. Ike and one of his, I think it's the chap that runs the place now, it's ADL Tabata Bai. They've been asked a series of questions in the name of transparency and openness, and have refused to answer as such. They've been offered opportunities to come before the cameras and be interviewed. To date, they've not even acknowledged that. So I think this is, it's going to be quite contentious. But I also know it will be very well done. It will be very well researched. Things will be properly, definitively, and empirically evidenced. There's always this sort of, this veil, this threat of being sued for libel and so on and so forth. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be made sure that opportunity isn't given. And if it turns out to be half the documentary of what I know that it could potentially be, then it's going to be a very interesting product, and it's going to be certainly very enlightening to a lot of people. And I think as it says, the private persona behind the public persona. So we should wait and see. But late summer, should be out by late summer. With that, will go out on numerous platforms. And again, that'll go out pay for view, quite rightfully so. Probably around the £2.99 mark or somewhere like that. But I don't know. Don't quote me on that because I'm just guessing. But it'll go out at a reasonable price because at the end of the day it needs funding and resources need to be brought in so that they can fund similar altruistic projects. And that is the thing. And going back to what I was saying before, Neil, I mean, you know what the running costs of this place are a month and what I pay out. But over and above that, the ethos will always remain the same. It's not about anyone here sort of, buying flash cars or going on holidays or flying around the world to interview potential presenters and nonsense like that. We want to establish a very strong, robust platform where we're putting back into it what we take out of it. And so, we open and transparent accounting. And let's start raising some capital to be able to fund other projects, because there's so many people out there and I come across this all the time, and I know you do. We meet so many people that come to us that have got such fantastic stories to tell, such, strong stories, stories that are not just of national but of international consequence, but they just don't have the resources to fund it. And it's not cheap. The average documentary, £4,000, £5,000. Programming's not cheap. As you know, maintaining websites, not only time consuming but fiscally as well. And there's so much that's not been done. And if we can, donations are something that are very hard to come by. I mean, in a year we've had £25 in donations, which I think doubled to 50 because one of our friends gave us £25 just to double our donations. When you consider, the amount that's been spent, both basically by me personally, it's just impossible. It's absolutely impossible for anybody to survive off donations. It can't be done.
I think it's fair to say, though, that even although we're talking about surviving on very little money or whatever, we're still looking for people to come in and utilise the studio in as much as they can do, and simply pay the running costs of it for whatever show they're doing, if they can do. And if they can't, perhaps there's selling products or whatever, but to help us out in some way, because we're facilitating them. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking to make huge profits off of people or anything. As you say, that the equipment needs to be used.
It needs to cover expenses. That's all it needs to do, Neil.
Yep.
Any profits are a good thing, because other profits can be put aside and say, okay, we've amassed X amount, £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000, whatever. That can be used to make another documentary. Let's face it, that's it. But the studio's there. I mean, the equipment is top notch. If somebody wants to come in and use it, do an hour's program, they want it live streaming, they also want it recording to put out on their platform, well, come and use it. It's not a problem. As you said about people that maybe have got products to sell, to an extent you can say, oh God, do we want to go down that route? Is it advertising? Well, I don't know. It depends to my mind, as long as that product is beneficial to humanity, so long as it's sort of ethically sound, then I don't have an issue with it. I mean, we're certainly not going to be on there, people selling whatever, timeshare and nonsense like that, or, that sort of thing. I mean, that's a no-no, that's not going to happen. But if somebody comes along and say, okay, then, we've got these products, and whether they be herbal medicines or essential oils or anything of that nature that is of benefit to people, then yeah, by all means, there isn't any reason why that shouldn't happen. And likewise, somebody wants to come along and, make a program about something that, we've all got our own opinions. We all feel strongly about some things and not strongly about other things. But if somebody wants to come and make a program about something that, we as individuals might think, or I as an individual might think, well, really, I don't follow that, or that's a little bit too conspiratorial to me, or that's just a little bit too, way out there. The ethos is always the same. Whatever that person believes, whatever they've emotionally and intellectually committed to, in my mind is right. It's like the argument of God. Does God exist? Well, if somebody says to me God exists, then there is no argument. God exists, and it's the same with every genre within the independent or alternative thinking genres. I don't have an argument with it. I don't have a problem with it. We will produce it. We will put it out there. Because it's up to the recipients to decide what they want to believe and what they want to commit to and don't commit to. But of course, with the Act of licensing, we're going to be able to give people an opportunity to come and make regular program, put it out there, and not fall foul of the authorities.
Yeah,
because we will say, yeah, all right, this was made here, it's their program, we've taken up the responsibility, let's put it out there.
Yeah, and the other thing we're looking for also is are people with stories to tell. I don't mean fairy stories. I mean, proper human interest stories, whether it be their experience with the DWP. I know Alan Taylor-Shearer's in touch with somebody from JSUK, Job Seekers UK, and that's going to be an ongoing kind of mini-series kind of thing, 10 minutes a week, I think, and a monthly roundup of stories from the DWP, Department of Work and Pensions, as it's known in the UK. And any other person who's got a story to tell, similar to the chap Darren, who was interviewed by Alan as well. And that video was shown on Saturday about his experiences with the NHS and the death of his father. I mean, there must be many, many similar stories out there, and I think it's important that we get as many of those kind of stories documented and on the record to show that there's a pattern of behaviour here by these institutions, which is clearly unacceptable. And the more of a pattern that we can get documented and see, the more evidence there is there for some kind of the possibility, say, of some kind of class action suit somewhere down the line, whatever the issue may be. And
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think the opportunities once you're gathering evidence from from all over the place, to start looking at class actions, to start looking at what's wrongly termed private prosecutions, and to be proactive about things. Those opportunities do exist. I mean, I can certainly teach people about being proactive and how to conduct a private prosecution from the very stages of taking, collecting the evidence, what is evidence, what isn't evidence, writing what in the UK is called an MG11, a Section 9 Criminal Justice Act written statement, the laws of statement writing, the rules of evidencing, the court procedures rules, so on and so forth. I can do that. I can teach people that. That's not a problem. I mean, over a 2-day period, I can take somebody from being a novice to being able to take something and say, okay, then I understand enough about this now, how to present it, what the rules of disclosure are, what's unused material, so on and so forth. I can do all that. However, it's like anything else, and people might say, well, that's a little bit mercenary, but it has to be. I am literally tens of thousands of pounds out of pocket. And if somebody wants to do that, and somebody once said, and it's not somebody that I admire very much within the alternative media circles, but he did say one thing, and it sort of knock home to me. He said, sometimes, people don't appreciate what they get for nothing. Because if they get it for nothing, they come along, it's costing them nothing, they don't necessarily have to commit to it. So I can do that, and I can teach people to do that, and we should be out doing that. We really, really, really should be out taking it to the front line, being very proactive at the front line. But, people are going to have to pay for it. And, people say, well, that's wrong, your information should be free. And information should be free. But the provision of a service, unfortunately, can't be free, because once you've paid for the place, for the training, the materials, and so on and so forth, no one can afford to do it. Literally, nobody can afford to do it. And as our erstwhile colleague once said, they don't appreciate what they get. People don't appreciate what they get for nothing. So I think okay, we can do that. I can train that. I can teach people to train their peers how to do that. But I'm not going to stand idly by now and do it for nothing anymore. It has to cover the costs of what we're doing. And people, in that way, people might commit to doing it.
Yeah, well, the fact is, if we don't cover costs, we're finished. That's the bottom line. We had the same issue with the Southern Independent newspaper in Ireland, and I got on board when the first edition was printed, and I helped deliver it and get it out there. And then the second edition had more of an input as an editor and writer and stuff. But I said to the lads back then, you have to treat this as a business or it's going to end. And within a couple of years it was finished, because they just kept giving it away and relying on donations, and you just can't do that. The UK column, they sell subscriptions. Well, that's fine. That's the only way they can keep going, and with some donations they get or whatever. But that's the way they've got to do it. You can't just give things away when they're costing you money. You just can't do it.
No, you can't do it. But the thing is, I think you've got a social responsibility that if you are charging for something, that you're charging for a documentary, or you're charging for a product. Unlike strictly within the traditional commercial sectors that are just going to take the profits and spend it on whatever these people spend it on. I think you can say, well, look, this is what it costs. These are receipts. This is how it was invoiced. This is the actual production costs. This is the cost of the people that you had to bring in. I mean, as you know, I've been bringing, professional cameramen, professional soundmen in to do stuff. And, for each one of those I'm bringing in, they're charging me anything, well, we won't say, but there's a lot of money, how much I'm having to pay for that. Well, that has to be paid for. And so I can, I can finance 3 documentaries. But after those 3 documentaries, if they don't bring in any revenue, we're finished. There are no more documentaries. And if people aren't going to donate, and I'm not saying people should donate, it's not easy to put your hand in your pocket for something that you don't know what the end result of something is going to be, then you do it to an element you have to commercialise. But so long as you do that responsibly, so long as you've got, transparency and accountability, and you're then able to put that back into other altruistic projects, then I don't see an issue with that. I don't see any issue with that whatsoever. Because if people want to see these things made, they need to be made. They have to be made. And once that ball is rolling, I can see that, there's so many people out there with so many good ideas. That eventually, we'll have the facility we've got here. Maybe we'll be able to get another facility somewhere else in the country. And let's move it forward. Let's, as Henry Ford says, not a great fan of Henry Ford either, but whether you believe you can or you believe that you can't, you're right. Well, I'm of the latter. I believe that I can. And that's the opinion that I've always had, and we will achieve, and we will do what needs to be done. And it may not be conventional routes, but then again, we don't all get to the same point where we need to be by conventional routes. So let's try it, let's do it. And I think the Awake radio platform has to be one of the most exciting opportunities out there. And I just so desperately hope that, the Awake TV is going to be embraced by people globally, and that they're going to get involved. And,
again on that issue, I mean, we talk about people coming and telling their stories. We're also looking for other presenters. So if there's anybody out there listening who wants to come into the studio and take part in the live broadcasts as a presenter, even, bring your own guest, whatever. We can accommodate that as well.
Yeah, and videos as well. I mean, as you said, Alan did a little video there. It was the first programme. I'll give a personal opinion, personal critique. It was very interesting what the gentleman was saying. Maybe a little bit too long. I think we can get more information in. What I would like to see people doing, anyway, start sending us your videos. 10, 12-minute clips, interviews that you're out there doing anywhere, from anywhere, it doesn't matter. Let's get them in there. Let's get them in from Australia, from Canada, from America, from Germany, from wherever. Let's get these interviews in there, and we will start putting them out. We will put them on the live show on the last Saturday of every month. We will, hopefully, as you said, we will do in the hour a week, starting a week on Wednesday. I'd like to expand on that. And let's build this platform. Let's really, really build this Awake TV platform.
Yeah. And, one thing I would say is anybody sending videos, just make sure there's no swearing in them. that's the only criteria really. Did somebody want to come in there?
Of course. Actually, Neil, I think we ought to acknowledge as well. I mean, it's difficult because obviously the majority of people are English speaking, but this isn't applicable only to the English speaking nations. And if people want to submit things, and maybe if it's in German or French or whatever, then send it to. I mean, I speak a little bit of German, so I should be able to make out whether it's too bad. But we can always get people to look at it to make sure that we haven't got anything in there that's unsuitable for broadcast, and maybe even get it translated and put subtitles on there. Let's just get everybody involved. Let's start sharing what needs to be shared.
Yeah, it was touted that we try and get some more European language hosts as well, and I think that's a possibility. I think we've got some contacts there that we could possibly do that with.
And I think just especially not well. Yeah, I'd like to see some European language hosts.
Yeah,
Eastern European.
I
think there's a lot that's happening in Eastern Europe that's relevant to the rest of the world. We do need people there. We need journalists from everywhere. And hopefully today I've made contact with somebody that's going to be a very good Middle Eastern journalist for us.
Great stuff. Okay, well, I think that's about it really, Dave, for the moment. I will mention that we've the Somerset flooding documentary is still on the go, and we have received some remarkable footage over the last few days from somebody. Fair play to him for allowing us to use it. And that really has kind of topped it off, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we're down there, I'm down there Wednesday and Thursday. I think we've got about 4 or 5 interviews to finish off now. One thing I will say, I'm very, very disappointed about, but not in the least bit surprised. I think, you've seen the spreadsheet, Neil. I haven't got it in front of me, so I can't read out the names, but...
all the big players anyway.
From David Cameron right down to local MPs, environment ministers, flooding ministers, so on and so forth. They were all sent recorded delivery letters in March of this year with an outline of what the documentary was about, a specific request for them to provide interviews about their role in it, and even the offer was in there that we were prepared prior to the interview to submit to them in writing a full breakdown of all the questions that would be asked, and give them an opportunity to answer those questions or to object to some of the questions, or even to actually say, well, can you put this question in? We tried to be as accommodating as possible, and without exception, not one single one of these people have had even the courtesy to reply.
There was one exception, that was Councillor Pallister.
Sorry, my mistake. Yes, Councillor Pallister.
One local councillor was the only person to reply out of all those people. But I intend phoning their offices and asking why they haven't even responded to the letters, because they were all sent recorded delivery, so they can't say they didn't get them.
No.
So we'll see what comes of that. And,
very, very, very disappointing, Neil. Not exactly unsurprised.
Well, it says a lot. That's
Well, when we need to get down to Downing Street, get your cameras out, and as these particular ministers and people come out, we'll doorstep them outside number 10 and give them a copy of the letter and say why haven't you even got the common courtesy to reply to this, even if it's no thank you, go away. Yeah. Your public service. Why? Just acknowledge it, eh?
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add, Dave?
No, not really. No, I'm going to go and do what a stocky man does at this time of night, which is eat pies.
I don't think the pie shop was open this late.
There's always a pie shop open, mate. That's the beauty of London. And I will see you in the near future.
Bright and early tomorrow morning, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Dave.